The meanings of individual words, expressions, or sentences may be interpreted differently in different contexts. Look at this figure to see how important the context is. The second character in the first line is seen as the letter B, and the same character in the second line is seen as number 13. The main reason that makes us interpret the same character differently is context. One utterance can give different interpretations in different situations, places, times, and so on. To do the job properly, the translator should be aware of everything related to that utterance, linguistically, socially, culturally, in addition to time and place. To discuss the importance of context in translation, we will focus on the three dimensions of context proposed by Hatim and Mason, 1990: the communicative, the pragmatic, and the semiotic. Today, we will focus on the semiotic level. Semiotics is commonly defined as the study of signs. Some linguists argue that every thought is a sign, and much of our communication can be expressed by signs and body language. We even have a complete sign language for the deaf and dumb. So, meaning can be communicated by means of non-verbal signs. For example, the word stop can be expressed by a non-verbal sign, like the sign of the traffic red light. Sometimes signs are understood differently across cultures. Today, we'll discuss a number of non-verbal elements or signs and their implications across cultures. 1. Interface direction. 2. Colors. 3. Images. 4. Gestures. We can start with this commercial for marketing a detergent. The sequence of the pictures in the Middle East may cause counter-advertising because right to left readers will start from the right picture. Arabs may start by looking at the clean shirt, then the detergent, and finally they look at the dirty shirt. In other words, the clean shirt will become dirty after using the detergent. When translating graphs or charts, one should consider the direction of these figures in the target language. For example, to translate an English chart that starts from the left-hand side, one should reverse that chart to the way graphs and charts are presented in the target language. In Arabic, we start the graph from the right-hand side, otherwise we might have a different reading. Linear graphs should be presented in the same interface direction of the target language. Circular graphs, on the other hand, can be presented similarly if we start from the top. In English and Arabic, they like to move clockwise, but in a process that starts at the bottom, it's more likely to take different directions in both languages according to the writing direction of each language. That's when we start the process from the bottom, Arabs tend to proceed rightward. Colors. Colors have symbolic values across cultures. The color black in the Arab world and the West is used for sad occasions and mourning, while in Asia, white is a symbol of death. The Chinese and Indians wear white at funerals, while color black is a symbol of wisdom. Therefore, an expression like "Bayad Allah wajhak," may Allah whiten your face, to put it literally, could have a negative meaning in many parts of South Asia, where we can hear expressions like after death, her face turned white, or his face turned white out of fear. While color red symbolizes happiness, prosperity, and good luck in China, it commonly signifies danger in Europe, North America, and the Arab world. Strikingly, the color red is used in the Chinese stock market to mark gains once prices go up, while green signifies losses if prices go down. Unlike the Western and Arab stock markets, the color green here indicates that the stock index is going down. Images. Like colors, images also play an important role in communicating ideas and concepts. In this picture, the English label for drinking water reads purified drinking water. The label of the same brand was translated into Arabic as مياه شرب معبأة, and its English counterpart reads bottled drinking water. The bottle that contains the drinking water could be a sufficient non-verbal sign that corresponds to the verbal sign bottled. Therefore, if we drop the word bottled, the translation will be more elegant and natural because the bottle as a symbol in itself gives the same message. Gestures. Gestures may also differ from one culture to another. Head shaking in India could mean yes, good, okay, if done in a form of a wobble. It may also be used as a gesture of gratitude or kindness. In most parts of the world, shaking your head left or right means no. Not in Bulgaria and Albania, where it means yes. And in Japan, it means he has heard your words, but no agreement or disagreement are implied. On the other hand, in Greece, Iran, Turkey, Bulgaria, Albania, and Sicily, a single nod of the head up, not down, indicates no. Pinching your fingers up means what is this, or what do you mean, or what do you want? But in Egypt it means wait a moment. And in Turkey it means great or good. The hand sign for perfect or great, by joining the index finger and thumb to make a circle, it means money in Japan. But it's obscene in Brazil, and in Iran is very offensive. And thumbs up gesture that commonly means okay or great is very offensive in Iran too. Finally, check marks or tick marks of schoolwork in Korea are different. The Nike tick mark is used for incorrect answers, while circles are only used for correct ones. Context and Translation Part 2. The Pragmatic Dimension. Last time we discussed the importance of context in translation. We focused on semiotics as one of the dimensions of context, proposed by Hatim and Mason. Today, we'll move to the pragmatic dimension. Pragmatics can be defined as the study of the relationship between linguistic forms and the users of these forms. Here, we move from the interpretation of words and phrases in the text to what the people mean by their utterance, not what the words mean. Therefore, pragmatics can help the translator understand the real and contextual meaning because it deals with the implied and intended meaning. In short, pragmatics deals with how people use context and knowledge of the speakers about the real world in order to understand language. Many books on pragmatics deal with issues that go beyond the linguistic meaning to the extra linguistic meaning. They include the cooperative principle, maxims of conversation, implicature, explicature, speech act theory. The most important principle of pragmatics is called the cooperative principle. It's a pragmatic principle that focuses on the roles of speakers and hearers in conversation. Speakers try to cooperate with the hearers to further their conversation and present their utterances clearly and concisely, avoiding ambiguity. In other words, people work together to develop and advance conversation. Grice proposes 4 maxims or rules of thumb expected in conversation: quantity, quality, relation, or relevance, manner. Quantity, don't say too much or too little. Quality, don't say what you believe to be false. Relation, be relevant. Manner, avoid ambiguity. Be brief, be orderly. Let us now look at this example. زيد, هل أنت من إنجلترا؟ عمرو, لا. We can translate the above conversation as زيد, are you from England? No. But this conversation doesn't meet the conversation maxims proposed by Grice, particularly the maxim of quantity, simply because the discontinued conversation means that Amr, speaker 2, doesn't want to continue talking with Zaid, speaker 1. This may imply that the second speaker is rude, arrogant, disappointed, etc. As to the maxim of relevance, utterance should be relevant to the assumed goals of the people involved. Statements should be relevant to the topic. For instance, meeting someone for the first time in the UK, one may start talking about something general, like the weather. When someone finds himself or herself standing alone next to another person that he doesn't know, on a bus stop, for example, and wanted to break the ice or fill up the silence to make the waiting time more comfortable and friendly, he may start talking about the weather and start a conversation about any general issue related to weather, timing of buses, or whatever. One of the common sentences used in this situation: "It's smile today," or "beautiful day, isn't it?" It could be translated as "الجو معتدل اليوم." "هذا يوم جميل، أليس كذلك؟" أو "ما أجمل هذا اليوم." But there is a lot of meaning implied in these short sentences that cannot be spelled out in direct translation. The typical way of starting this type of discourse in the Arabic culture, is to use the following words or phrases: مرحبا, أهلا, كيف حالك? To transfer this meaning while maintaining the same English expression, one may say مرحبا, الجو جميل اليوم. كيف حالك في هذا الجو الجميل? In Arabic, people like to start with greeting anyone they know or know not. If we turn to the maxim of manner, we can notice that any departure from the manner norms of speech would imply further meanings. For instance, to ask for something in English, the speaker uses an interrogative sentence starting with a modal verb like can, may, etc. And the word please, like can I have that book, please? In Arabic, on the other hand, the same request is made using a declarative sentence. أعطيني هذا الكتاب. أعطيني الكتاب من فضلك. Both sentences are used in Arabic in imperative forms. However, the second expresses a sense of politeness towards the addressee for his position or age, for example, or it reflects the social status and education of the addresser. We should bear in mind that the first form doesn't involve any sort of prejudice in the Arab world, and it could be used generally in most Arab communities. Explicature and Implicature. Griffith defined explicature as a basic interpretation of an utterance using contextual information and world knowledge to work out what is being referred to and which way to understand ambiguous expressions. To see how important explicature is in translation, let us consider the following example. That was the last train. We can translate the above sentence literally and semantically based on our understanding of the English grammar. So the word that refers to something known to both the speaker and the addressee. Was is a past tense, and last could mean the final or the most recent. Overlooking the context, we can translate the example above like كان هذا آخر قطار. But if we consider the context, we can give more precise translation. For instance, if that sentence was a reply to a question of someone who has missed the train late at night, we can translate it as كان هذا آخر قطار لهذه الليلة. In this case, we can probably interpret that short sentence as that was the final train for tonight. If the same sentence was a reply to someone inquiring, does this train go to Alexandria? In this case, the sentence that was the last train could mean the previous train that left from here goes there. كان هذا هو القطار السابق. Therefore, context makes the translation easier and unambiguous. Implicatures are the inferences that can easily be comprehended throughout the conversation. These inferences can be figured out through interpreting the hints and expressions on the faces of the speaker, hearer, so that we can know whether the utterance means annoyance, sympathy, apology, sarcasm, etc. Then these inferred expressions can color the translation. So implicature refers to the invisible meaning communicated implicitly rather than expressed directly. Let us look at the following example that was hanged on the door of a Moscow hotel room. If this is your first visit to Russia, you are welcome to it. Commenting on this notice, Fargal states, the conditional sentence gives rise to a conversational implication that constitute the basis of the humorous script. That if this is not your first time to visit Russia, you are not welcome to it. The pragmatic meaning may differ from one situation to another and across languages. In the spoken language, a message may be interpreted in different or even opposite forms to the direct meaning of its components, ironically, as in the following example. You are very smart. This could mean the opposite in many situations. أنت غبي جدا. What a big money. Again, it could mean the opposite. يا له من مبلغ ضئيل. The intended meaning of the above sentences is the negation of the message. What activates the opposite meaning is the context itself. For example, in the first sentence, the addressee may have uttered or done something that is naive or stupid. In the second, he may have been offered so little amount of money that he finds it ironical to accept. Grace refers to the meaning that is derived from an utterance as the conversational implicature. In the following example, one can think of many possible readings of the same words, depending on the context. It's freezing in this room. It could mean أرجو إغلاق النافذة، أرجو إغلاق الباب، أرجو إغلاق التكييف، أرجو خفض التكييف، هل ممكن أن ننتقل إلى غرفة أخرى؟ In fact, both the speaker and the addressee should be cooperative for the activation of any of the above translation. If they both know that the cause of the freezing temperature in the room is the air condition, so the request is to either turn it off or down. So the cooperative principle, according to Grice, is substantially important in interpreting the message. A simple sentence like the following can be translated literally, but the intended meaning may not be conveyed if the reader or the listener has no idea about the context. It's 12 o'clock now. إنها 12 الآن. الساعة 12 الآن. This simple sentence can be interpreted in multiple ways. حانت صلاة الظهر. تأخرنا عن صلاة الظهر. بدأ اللقاء الآن. انتهى اللقاء الآن. بدأت المحاضرة الآن. انتهت المحاضرة الآن. موعد الإقلاع الآن. موعد الوصول الآن. Each different interpretation can be valid based on the relevant situation and user. Speech Act Theory. Speech Act Theory was first introduced by Austin in 1962 and developed by his student Searle. Later, Austin noted that utterances are equivalent to actions. They, in fact, have communicative force. The third dimension of context, according to Hatim Mason, is the communicative. We talked about the semiotic dimension that deals with extra-linguistic elements in discourse, like signs, colors, gestures. Then we moved to the pragmatic dimension that focuses on the intentions of language users, that's the speakers. Now, we'll discuss the communicative dimension that focuses on both language use and users. Communicative translation. This method of translation refers to the type of translation that makes the target text as close as possible to the source text contextually. A simple phrase, which is always used in Arabic, may confuse the target reader if translated literally or semantically. For instance, بالهنا والشفا, which is often said when seeing someone eating or offering a meal to a guest, can be translated literally as with bliss and cure. This seems exotic and cannot reflect the purpose of the phrase. Alternatively, the translator can look for phrases used in similar situations, like the French phrase bon appétit. The French phrase cannot be either translated literally into English as good appetite, because the English people don't use the phrase in similar situations at all. They rather use other phrases for formal or informal communication in similar situations, like the following: I hope you enjoy the meal. Enjoy the meal. Enjoy. I hope you like it. I hope it's alright. Happy eating. Do start. Dig in. Tuck in. The last two may be used informally among friends at the beginning of meals. This doesn't only apply to spoken communication or in informal situation and letter writing. For instance, the opening and closing expressions differ from one language to another, and if translated literally or semantically, they might not convey the same message. For example, there is no single equivalent to the English opening in letters or emails. Dear Sir, dear Madam, dear Sirs, dear Mr. or Mrs. In Arabic formal correspondence, we often use the following phrases: سيدي المحترم، سيدتي المحترمة، السيد المحترم، السيد المحترمة، السادة المحترمون. However, for informal communication, we may translate the word literally if the addressor and the addressee are the same gender. عزيزي السيد، عزيزتي السيدة، عزيزي زيد or عمرو. The closing phrase can also be translated literally, but they will appear foreign to the target culture because Arabs tend to write different phrases to give the same function. Yours faithfully, صديقك المخلص. Use sincerely, صديقي الوفي. Respectfully use, احترامي لك. Truly use, المخلص لك. But we commonly use different expressions like وتفضلوا بقبول وافر التقدير والاحترام، مع خالص الشكر والتقدير، مع أسمى عبارات الإخلاص، تقبلوا مني فائق عبارات الاحترام, and many others. Hatim and Mason talked about two major elements in order to tend for the communicative dimension in translation. Uses, where we can talk about dialects and idiolect, and use. In this area we should consider field, tenor, and mode. First of all, dialect. Meanings may differ across dialects. The language used in USA is slightly different from that used in the UK, and each Arabic-speaking country or region has its own variety of Arabic. The word bands has different meanings in British and American English. Look at this funny incident. I heard an American student at Cambridge University telling some English friends how he climbed over a locked gate to get into his college and tore his pants. And one of them asked, but how could you tear your pants and not your trousers? When translating between dialects, one can use similar forms from the target dialect or stick to the standard language, though some aspects of the meaning intended may be overlooked. Here is an example quoted from Evelyn's book, Ropes of Sand. We did, however, talk about Iraq, and when I expressed my fear that Iraq's government might try to take over Syria by a coup or by force, Shuckburg reacted with anger. Perhaps you would prefer to have the CIA's Nasser in control of Syria instead. You can notice on the Arabic version of this quotation that the author switched to the colloquial Arabic to translate the genitive CI is Nasser to show his disgust of such relation between an Egyptian figure and CIA. The translator explained the reason for choosing this colloquial word as follows. We have chosen this colloquial word for it's more precise than any other standard form, without any prejudice against our honorable standard language. Now let's have another example, quoted from Dickens 2002, to see how this technique is employed in translation from Arabic into English. The Arabic text contains a colloquial phrase, مش ممكن. As the spokesman for the Council of Islamic Affairs in America and America's greatest optimist, Dr. Mahdi, puts it, the future belongs to us. When Arabs and Muslims used to tell him that's impossible, his reply to these weak-willed characters was, with work and patience, all things are possible. According to Dickens, the use of the colloquial phrase مش ممكن is not accounted for in the English translation. That's impossible. That translated phrase is not colloquial. So we could rather use a similar colloquial form like no way to maintain the same sense. Idiolect. This is the personal dialect of a user, his or her way of pronouncing, or his or her way in lexical choice. One's idiolect differs from his style. Style is a conscious choice to produce certain effect. The language use. Field of discourse. Fields of discourse can be non-technical, literary, religious, general, or technical, as in legal translation, legal text, engineering, physics, computer science, etc. Rees, in 1971, offered a more detailed classification of fields of discourse, or what she calls text types: informative, expressive, operative. The main function of informative text is to focus on content, not form, to convey information to the audience, like in translating news, official documents, academic articles. Expressive text. With this type of text, we focus on the form of the source text to render the aesthetic features of a text, particularly literary genres such as novels, poetry. Operative. Here we neither focus on the content or form of the source text, but rather try to find an equivalent form in the target text to persuade the receiver to take an action, to buy a specific product or vote for a particular political party. The most significant point of identifying the text type is to adopt the appropriate translation methods that could give the same functions of the text. To give an example, let us consider the different ways of representing the following piece of information. Coronavirus killed off 500,000 people. Coronavirus killed 500,000 people. 500,000 people died because of coronavirus. Coronavirus wiped out 500,000 people. Coronavirus claimed 500,000 lives. Coronavirus took a toll of 500,000 lives. Coronavirus decimated 500,000 people. The fatalities in coronavirus totaled 500,000. You can simply give one version in Arabic if the text belongs to the first type, that's informative, irrespective of the aesthetic features employed in the remaining sentences. تسبب فيروس كورونا في وفاة نصف مليون شخص. Tenor of discourse. The relationship between the addresser and addressee in terms of language function, formality and informality. Participants' relationship varies from one person to another. The way a doctor talks to a patient differs when he talks to his colleagues. The language differs in terms of formality, informality, between another child, wife, husband, teacher, student, manager, employee. So we need to bear in mind how formal or informal the language is in relevant situations. Mode of discourse. Is the text a written or a spoken discourse? Is it written to be spoken or written to be read? This has implications in translation regarding structure and word selection. Thank you for watching and see you later.